Welcome to today's meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Education. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. That means you.
Yeah, on this beautiful day on the Central Coast, let us salute our community as we join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And Lana?
I thought I'd see if somebody wants to do the interpreter introduction since I've done it so many times. Good morning, this is a bilingual message. Para la reunión de hoy día, como siempre, contamos con interpretación simultánea entre inglés y español. Si a alguien le gustaría escuchar la reunión, con gusto les puedo dar un equipo de interpretación. Me pueden visitar en la mesa que está afuera. Good morning, everybody. Once again, we're providing simultaneous interpretation for today's meeting. So if anybody would like to listen to the meeting in Spanish, excuse me, I'll be on the other side of the wall if you'd like to pick up a device. Thank you. Thank you.
Anna, roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Hardy.
Here.
Mrs. Amy.
Here.
Mrs. Helen. Here. Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Do with us and Mr. Porter.
And presence.
At this point, I'm not aware of any changes to the agenda for today. And so we will go on to item number 5. And I would like to start with a congratulations to our superintendent, Celestia. Campaign well run, and it's unofficial because we haven't got all the ballots yet, but it looks like it's pretty good. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And that's the most exciting thing in my life. That's really sad. Any other
it's
comments?
very exciting.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Do we have some public comments today? No? Oh my goodness. Then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Susan for item number 7.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much and good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of you. And today we get an opportunity to pause and recognize a very special individual, Debbie Breck. And as we do that, I'm going to invite Bill Ridgway to begin, and then I'll follow after that. So Bill, if you wouldn't mind coming right up to the podium. Thank you.
Excuse me.
You may want to bring Debbie up with you. That's up to you.
Well, Debbie loves the limelight. Okay. All right. Well, this is going to be an easy one. As I was thinking about Debbie, I thought, you know what? We all kind of have a Debbie in our lives. Think of somebody who you really like working with and think about the qualities of that person. You've just identified Debbie. She's kind of the whole package. She's smart, she's witty, she's competent, she's kind. She has the ability to get the job done, but in really good personal ways. She's actually been with our office for 9 years now. She didn't start off in this position that she's in. She started off as a district financial advisor in school business advisory services. And she was there for 3 years supporting school districts throughout the county. And because she had worked in 2 of those school districts, she wasn't just supporting the district, she knew exactly what the districts were going through when she supported them. So she really supported them with not only a lot of competence, but a lot of empathy, knowing that in particular, if you're a small district, you're switching hats like crazy, right? I'm mowing the lawn, I'm driving the bus, I'm the principal, I'm the everything. So she totally understood that. And when she left that position to become the department head in internal services, there were districts who were kind of like, oh, we're really going to miss her. And I understand that because we're now in that position, right, where she's going to be retiring, and we will all truly miss her. She just really is a wonderful person to deal with. Not only gets the job done, and that over the past couple of years has been such a moving landscape. She's become the queen of distributing PPE to school districts and serving districts in that way. Whatever you throw at her, she takes and she turns it around and she makes something good out of it. So I just want to express my appreciation to Debbie for 9 years of careful, competent, kind service in our office. And she's been such a contributing member at cabinet as well. So to me, another round of applause is appropriate.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Debbie, I'm going to ask you to please join me. Gotta have you right here at the podium for sure.
We'll trade voices.
Yeah. Can't believe that this is today.
I know.
We'll get her for a few more weeks, so yeah. 22 days. Oh, Debbie, I am what a privilege to be able to speak about you to you right here to everyone. And as I've been thinking about you, Debbie, I was thinking, gosh, Debbie, you are so good. And then it went to, no, let me edit myself. You are so great. And then I edited again. Well, edited again. And I have to say, Debbie, you are exceptional. And really, all three, good, great, and exceptional, truly, Debbie. And I say that because when I think about somebody who's good at your work, it's being able to navigate through budgets and knowing the figures and being able to understand the language of numbers and be able to communicate that, keep us really solvent and healthy and vibrant and all of that, Debbie. So that's being good. And you are good. But the great, I think, the great really comes with the people. You're so great with people. You've been that way since you worked with Ballard, college, solving as DFA, as Bill says, as a district financial advisor, and in your role right now. You're so great with people. And then I think in terms of exceptional, what I so appreciate, Debbie, about you is you have such a command of your job. And it's in the context of knowing that the fact that if you're good at your job and the team is good at their job, it is in support of the children in our schools and the people who support the children in our programs in our schools. That's why I think you're so exceptional, because you always have such the big picture in mind when you're handling the really fine details. So I think for all those reasons, I want you to know that you're somebody who I feel so honored and privileged to have worked with as a colleague and a friend. And your impact really has made us better as a system, truly. So with that, I want to say, first of all, from the board and myself and your team, we got a bouquet of flowers for you. So that's for you. And this crystal outfit. And I would like to read that for you. To do that for you, Debbie. It says to Debbie Breck, in honor and deep gratitude for your 25 years of education, your legacy of service, leadership, excellence, and heart will be remembered by us all. And it's from the County Board of Education and myself and this team. Debbie, this is for you. You're so
I feel like everything you just said is about you and all of you and all of you. I mean, it is such a team. Nobody can do anything very well or for very long or much of it without his team. And I mean, from the program managers to the team in fiscal to HR, everybody, and the board to everybody, that's what we do. That's why we do it. And it's been more than just work. It's been something that you feel proud to do every day. So thank you so much.
I would just like to say that with Debbie's departure, she epitomizes the exceptional staff here at Santa Barbara County Education Office. And you will be missed. And I'm confident that whoever steps into your shoes will do a great job. But we can only wish you the best, Debbie, for whatever you choose to do in your retirement. You might come back and visit us once again. But thank you for your service. You bet.
So Debbie, as a neighbor in the San Ynez Valley, I'm a huge believer in tiny school districts because of local control and because of educational excellence, because you can really focus the staff on individual students. But that doesn't work unless there's huge back office support to make all the administration work correctly. You're the one that has allowed that to happen for our Valley schools. And I deeply, deeply appreciate that. But it ain't over. Even though maybe you're not working for SBCEO anymore, we still need to contribute to weave a very thick and dense carpet of people involved in the community in the Valley. And I look forward to seeing you doing all that.
Debbie, I remember the first days that you were hired. And I also remember during my time on the budget committee, how you would be able to break down complicated matters with such a quiet authority and your ability to teach those of us in the room and really illuminate some of the intricacies. And I thought Bill Ridgway was the only person I could do that. And there you work. So congratulations. And this next chunk of your life should be just alive with so much potential and enjoyable.
So I hear you're taking a job at Direct Relief because you do such a great job.
I've been thinking about that.
And where is that in your job description? And I mean, that to me epitomizes you as well as the rest of the team. That, okay, you have a job description because we have to have job descriptions, but that edge of it is not the end of your job description, it's just the beginning. And you epitomize that, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, Debbie, and I wish you well. And if we need anything distributed, we'll give you a call.
I was the cookie chair.
Have a marketable sale.
Absolutely. Okay, then we'll move on to our information items. And I think our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Ellen Archer.
Hi. Hey, I'm done. Yeah, I have to go after Debbie Breck. Thanks, Matt. So this first presentation that I'm doing today is an annual summary of our support for LCAP and continuous improvement. And it incorporates 4 elements in that support. There we go. Three, two, there we go. One. The 4 elements right there. So LCAP plan support, differentiated assistance support, support for implementing our district's LCAP, and working within the California statewide system of support. And so as a quick background in the history of purpose of where does this come from, it all stems from the local control funding formula of 2013 that has these 4 components of our California accountability system. In 2014, we got the LCAP, followed then by the California State Dashboard, which then led to differentiated assistance and building of a statewide system of support, which says 2018, but it continues to grow. And as part of that, then beginning in 2019, it became the expectation that every county office who is central to all of that accountability would provide a summary of plan support, tell about the highlights and the changes that happened that year, and then submit a report to the CDE, because they have to collect all of it and put it all together to take a look at that. And that's the ed code right there. So what I'm going to do today is talk about those 3 goals or expectations. The first one being support and review all of the LCAPs. And then I added there, and additional plans. We know that especially this year. Provide the differentiated technical assistance and continuous improvement. And of course, throughout all of that, help districts and support them in implementing those LCAPs and all of those plans for coherence. And so what I'll do is I'll share our overarching goals in each of those areas, give updates from 21-22, and a little bit about what's in the plan that we know ahead for 22-23. So we'll start with the LCAP and plan support. And you can see that our overarching goals there are really about providing districts that ongoing knowledge, training, one-on-one help, skills, support, so that they can create and submit a completely approvable LCAP. Then our other part is making sure that we get ahead of it with them in time, that we can preview their LCAPs, their budget overview for parents, and provide the feedback to ensure approvability so that what they take to their board is approvable. And then after that happens by June 30th, fully review and approve all of those LCAPs. So very simple, but not easy. So a few things. This past year, LCAP and plan support included as many as 8 additional plans. That's over and above the LCAP and the single plan for student achievement, their special education plans, all those things they do every year. AB 130 added all of these plans. So an independent study plan. The ESSER 3 was federal, so it wasn't from our AB 130, but they had to do a local education agency accountability report card, educator effectiveness, a mid-year supplement, A through G, the universal pre-K, and the expanded learning opportunities plan. These are all additional plans that on top of LCAP, we provided the support and the training and all of the work for our districts this year. That's why Bridget looks so tired. That's why when you go to our districts, they look so tired. Also this year, on top of that, there were significant changes to the LCAP that came through AB 130. And so in the past, it was just kind of, there's quantitative actions and qualitative actions, and they have new requirements and clarity for qualitative actions. This was the first year that we had to do the annual update in this new format. So it was the second year of the plan, but it was the first time we had an embedded annual update and 2 new Excel tables that had to be figured out and all had to come together. And part of that is because there's also a new requirement, which is the calculation of carryover obligation. What that means is the districts wrote their LCAPs last year, had all their plans, and how they were going to increase and improve services for the students who generated the funds. Students who are from low-income families, English learners, and foster youth. And then throughout the year, they've always done an annual update. But now new legislation shows that they have to recalculate the amount of money they get, compare that to their estimated actuals, and calculate if there is a differential, and then tell how that obligation is going to be met over and above the next year's obligation. So this put a lot of layers and coherence checks and a lot of training that had to come into this, because it sounds simple until you start working with school finance. That is still, we don't have a budget. And, so they are calculating on those uncertain revenues that we talked about last week. So, good fun. So, so I also thought it would be a good opportunity to say, well, what really is our role in the LCAP? What does it mean to approve? And so really, the county offices have a dual role. We are both the approvers of the plan, as well as the supporters of the planning and the plan process, and as we've said, the implementation of the plan. So where our authority lives in the approval is not in the content, is not in decision-making, is not in, I don't think you should do that, but it really is 4 criteria. It used to be 3, but the new carryover calculation has now turned it to 4. So the first criterion is, did they follow all of the instructions, use the template in all of its parts, and that integrates all of the elements of EdCode. That includes everything from, do they have all of the required metrics? Have they included all 8 state priorities? There's a 26-page checklist that we have for that. Second, do they have sufficient budget to carry out all of these LCAP services? This is where program fiscal, we work really closely together with their adopted budget to see that all the things tie together. The third is, and this is really the big one, is through that entire plan, did they meet that increased and improved services requirement through all the elements of the plan to show how they are increasing and improving services and actions for the students who generated those funds. And we say generated those funds, but what it really is a calculation based upon their unduplicated pupil count for that minimum proportionality percentage by which they have to increase and improve. So that's true for all districts because it's the expectation of providing the services for the students who need them. And so then the fourth this year is that calculation of carryover, and that they have embedded the plan, if there is a calculation of carryover obligation, into the new plan. So that's our authority. We're checking all those pieces are there. But that opportunity to support planning and influence coherence is why we work on this year round. It's not just about getting it approvable, but really about getting it right and allowing this plan to really communicate both internally and externally how they plan to operationalize equity and to be congruent and cohere, not only with all their other plans, but with the vision, mission, and values of the school district. So that's okay. So our LCAP team is a joint venture between C&I for all of the program checks and School Business Advisory Services for all the fiscal elements. And so with us today is one of our 2 leads. Our other lead, Stephen Torres, is at Santa Barbara Unified working on a project today. But Steve and Denise have really built fantastic systems with our directors in C&I division and our district financial advisors who work together to not only approve and review these plans, but really to support the districts all along the way. And so what that looks like is how do we build our capacity? How do we build the district's capacity? And we include charter schools in the building of capacity and support, even though we don't approve their plans, we still provide all of the support. And then what does that support look like as we're getting to the finish line this month? And so for building our capacity, our office actually leads the entire state in the statewide training for county office LCAPs. That means 5 modules, 10 sessions, bi-weekly calibration calls to really make sure that all county offices are on the same page and requiring the same things. That really helps to build our capacity and work closely with the CDE and every other county office to then do number 2, which is building our district's capacity. So we do local training and work sessions. We do them for the program folks in the district, for the fiscal folks in the district, and we do it jointly. We also provide intense and comprehensive customized support. So we start calendaring and tools, sometimes in November. This year we were still writing 3 other plans, so it kind of got moved to December and January. But we lay out calendars with our districts. Some of them, it's weekly that we meet with them to keep it on track and to make sure that we're providing those supports. And then that support, before we do the official review, we're deep in preview. So they're sending us parts and pieces, and it's an iterative process, getting it back to them, working fiscal program together, problem solving, advising. And it's in this really tight window because they usually have a sense of how much money they're getting by the May revise and then need to get it finalized in those last couple of weeks. So that's what we're doing for LCAP training and support. So this is what it's going to look like going into next year. Same cycle. It starts off in July, and we usually spend an additional 15 to 40 hours over and above the hours and hours that were spent in preview in doing the full-on review, clarification, and approval process. And then this summer, all of those additional plans that started last year, we have to help then start on the reporting because all of the reporting starts. And then we begin the cycle again and rinse and repeat. So that's a really big part of what it means to approve all of the LCAPs. So the second area is providing differentiated technical assistance and continuous improvement. And this is built on that 4th part that you saw in the accountability, which is California's statewide system of support. You can see right at the bottom in the center, county offices are at the center of that, and we work closely with the CDE and the CCEE, which is the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. And we are in a geographic region with 6 total counties, LA, Ventura, ourselves, Kern, San Luis, and Fresno. And we get together at least monthly, full days, to really work on and develop our capacity to support districts in the differentiated assistance. So you can see that we intervene, if you will, at the local education agency level, and then that puts them in the place to support their individual local schools. So our goals in differentiated technical assistance is really, Susan says it all the time, differentiated. It's comprehensive, coherent support informed by the district systems and context, customizing the process, individualizing the approach for each district, and we take a long-term view, understanding systems change, that you can only work on a few things at once, and as they start to get better at getting better, then there's going to be new areas that they want to get better. And so these are just some of the research foundations and frameworks that really undergird our work at all 3 levels, or not, we're not at 3rd level, at both levels, both at the universal level and how we work with the districts, and for those that qualify for that more intensive technical assistance. And so one of the things that really made it different this year and the previous year was the lack of a dashboard. So the whole differentiated assistance qualification is based upon dashboard indicators. But without those dashboard indicators, the colors, it really changes the nature of what does it mean to provide that 1st level technical assistance. And so this past year, our focus has really been on transforming data use culture in our districts. The lack of that dashboard, which is a huge, huge change from before where we have a single number or just academics, really got us to look at a whole variety of indicators and look at both status and change. But now, with that not available, folks really started to say, what data do we have and what other data is going to help us respond to these needs we see in our students? So we really have been able, working together through individualized work with districts, but through Curriculum Council and all of our different networks and our language education network, is broadening the conceptions of data beyond just state academic performance and greater triangulation between outcome data, process data, and systems data. Also, we've been able to see in our districts just shifts to deeper inquiry systems. So whereas, when accountability first started, it felt very much like a gotcha, and it would put districts on the defensive. As we see us moving through, now, instead of looking at suspensions as, what are we going to do to change suspensions? What are we going to do to look at expulsions? They're really seeing not only how these changes have informed the culture of the school, but then recognizing now that often they're indicators and early warning systems of deep student and family needs. And we're seeing that shift in the discussions as our districts are looking at data in these ways. So it's a deeper sense of accountability because it's not justifying or making it pretty, but it's really going in deeper. And so throughout all, we've really maintained an equity focus and really focused on two student groups that just consistently we need to support and provide more attention to, both English learners, students with disabilities, and we did quite a bit this year of seeing the overlap there. We have a new data analyst, and so we've been able to provide many more data visualizations because she can just program it and make it so ready to our districts. So that's been that level 1 support. So level 1 is the support for all. Level 2 is the differentiated assistance for the districts that qualify. And as I said, AB 130 said we have no dashboard. And so the districts who qualified based on the last dashboard we had, 2019 December, are still eligible for assistance. So in AB 130, section 122, it called out specific data that we would review and analyze with our districts. And this is that data. It falls into 6 different categories. The ELOG, which was a plan they had to write last spring, looking at the local indicators, which we're going to do a little bit later today for our county office. Looking at the assessment scores, whether they use Smart or Balanced or their local assessment, then there was data on pupil engagement, such as chronic absenteeism, suspension, some of those areas. And then the 2 student groups that really were most affected by the pandemic, students with disabilities or data on IEP and special education and ELD instruction. And so you can see that we put it into these 4 areas and we provided support, analysis, differentiated work with our 6 districts who still qualified. So I won't go into all the details of all of the data displays and all of the work that we did with them in multiple meetings. But what I'll say is that we had 6 different districts, and this data really took them into 6 different directions. So each district has really leveraged these data analyses in different ways. They've chosen very different focus areas and approaches to continue to analyze and work on their improvement. Some of the follow-up is happening now. In fact, our team is at Santa Barbara Unified today, and it will continue into next year as well till there's the next dashboard. So I'll just give one example. So our team is at Santa Barbara Unified today, and one of the areas that they were looking at, root cause. And where we are right now is looking at mathematics pathways as they're laid out and what's actually happening for students. So we have done this comprehensive pulling of data, coding it, stripping it of student IDs, but keeping all of the student characteristics, looking at the courses that they take and how that correlates with their test scores, recognizing all of these different courses which might be intended to provide extra support. Who's populating them? What is the difference? Where do you see? And this is something that they've been looking at and they've wanted to do. And our teams probably spent 300 or 400 hours collectively preparing for this. And they have a whole team over there today, teachers, counselors, principals, district office staff, taking a look at this and informing their system. So that was just one example. And very excited. Can't wait to go over and see how it's going. So finally, this is our differentiated assistance team that's doing that work and has been doing that work. You can see it's quite a big group. The last area is the support for implementation of plans. And it's in absolutely everything we do. Last year, I really went into depth how we make ourselves aware and we really dig into those LCAP and other plans in our CNI division meetings, through all of our credential programs, through all the work we do, the how and the what. And so the why is obvious. And so with those three goals, the last part of it is, putting all those things to submitting them to the CDE so that they can do them, put them together collectively among the 58 county offices. And we'll send that in with our LCAP. And so I'll just pause there and say thank you for listening to our wonky work. And what questions might you have that I can answer?
Helen, do you expect to get a dashboard this year?
Yes, great question. The dashboard this year, there will be data, but there won't be 2 years of data, which is necessary for status and change. So the dashboard won't be a 5x5, but it'll be kind of like a 1x5. We don't know yet what the different cut scores will be for the different levels and how they'll determine differentiated assistance. But that is what we expect to hear this summer.
So it'll be more focused on a point in time rather than a period of time.
Yes. Instead, it's going to be just what we call status. What was the performance for the year versus the current one that has a matrix of both the status and the growth from the previous year.
So they didn't set goals for the dashboard per se because we didn't have a dashboard.
When you say they, who's the they? You mean districts or the CDE?
Yeah, districts.
Oh, yeah. So they have data. The data that the student that the districts get, let's say it's the academic data, it's still reported to them, but not in the dashboard format. They get the same data cut different ways. So they have a lot of the data, and their goals and their targets are in their LCAP plan for the data they have. It's just not on that pretty heat map, red, blue, green.
So the LCFF and LCAP have changed over the years.
Yes.
They've been around now for 8 years, 10 years?
62 years, it feels like.
With the big whole COVID stuff. As it gets more and more and more robust, there's this huge bureaucracy now consuming you all doing this as well as the districts. How do we provide feedback either to the state superintendent or the state board of education that, hey, slow down, it's too much, or this is worthless, this is really good? I mean, we used to have a county board of education or a state board of education member living in our county that we could provide feedback to directly, but and this may not be a question for you, but how do we collectively provide feedback to the state on what's working and what's not?
So one of the things that, yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question, because that question is real. There's a lot of intent in legislation that isn't always played out and figured out what the impact is going to be. And so this year there were multiple bills. I'll just take one for example, SB3, that was intending to add more layers of bureaucracy to the LCAP for the purpose of transparency and accountability, and simply being able to say, well, if we can look at, if we can get everybody to write their actions in a few categories, and then we can look at outcomes, we can make people do best practices, which we all know that doesn't make sense. Also, the amount of time that would have gone into re-entering everything, so we really worked hard as CSESA, and because I am on that team that leads LCAP, I've been in multiple meetings. And in fact, that was one of the areas where we were successful in meeting with the sponsors of the bill, which was Children Now and a few other areas, and with the legislator who was carrying the bill, to really get past those things that sounded good in theory, but we could say how they would play out and how they would interrupt the business of actually working on improvement when you add layers of re-entering. And they changed the legislation. So they're going to work toward a portal to make them all available, but not make people hand enter all of these things, which was in the initial bill.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
You're such a hard act.
And
Ellen is such
now we have our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Bridget Roberts. Hi, Bridget.
Good morning. I was just saying Ellen's a
You're
hard act to
great,
follow.
Bridget.
She's such a wealth of knowledge. I'm going to speak a little bit about our local indicators today. And Ellen spoke a lot about the LCAP and the support that her office does. And so this is directly related to our internal programs and juvenile court and community schools, and how we are doing also with one state priority area related to, or two state priority areas related to foster youth and our expelled youth plan. So let me grab this. And we're just going to start with a simple definition of what is a local indicator. And the local control funding formula defines a local indicator as priorities where data is not collected at the state level, but instead is based solely on locally collected data that an LEA will measure and report on through the dashboard. And you just heard Ellen speak a lot about the dashboard. And so I'll talk a little bit about that and how it impacted our LCAP progress this year. Next, we'll look at just what are the indicators. And so this is by priority areas. There are 8 state priority areas, and there are 10 for county offices of education. So those bottom two, the coordination of services for expelled youth and the coordination of services for foster youth, are strictly for county education offices. There are 5 state indicators, as Ellen indicated, CASP scores, English language arts and math scores, suspension rate, graduation rates. And then there are 5 local indicators identified for districts and 7 for county offices of ed, which are based on local data. And these items are connected to the LCAP. So as you're reviewing the LCAP and thinking about that, you'll see those state priority areas, all 10 for us, reflected in our goals. And then you'll see both the state and local indicators really reflected in our metrics. So there are certain required metrics that we have included in the LCAP, and these areas are all reflected in that. Additionally, the state and local indicators are reported to the dashboard, but as Ellen stated, it had been suspended for the previous 2 years. Traditionally, we would use the dashboard to really develop the LCAP, to inform that development. And we look at that data to really identify areas of strength and need. And in absence of that this year, we really had to look at a lot of our local data and analyze and see how are we doing. And so we looked at things in addition to maybe statewide assessment data, how are our students doing on local formative assessments? What kind of progress are they making? So we took a lot of time to really think through that. How are they doing in terms of career and college indicators? How are they doing in their industry certifications? What percentage of our students are enrolled in a CTE class? Because we didn't have some of that normal statewide data that we would see reflected on the dashboard. And through that process, it's really just to look at our student outcomes. It's that cycle of review that Ellen spoke about. How are we doing? Let's analyze our data. Where do we need to improve? And how do we reflect that in our LCAP? Specific to local indicators, the State Board of Education developed specific measurements in which an LEA uses to report and measure progress on each of the priority areas. And really, we just rate ourselves. We go through this process. We look at how we're doing. We work with our teams. So JCCS works with their leadership team. TYS, our Transitional Youth Services, worked with their team to go through those measurements, those self-reflection tools, to analyze our progress and then write the ratings and narratives, which are what you have included in your board packet today. So that's that assessment progress we went through. And a district or a county office can be as met for local indicators, which is reflected on the dashboard. Basically, if we do these three things, we analyze our progress, we report our progress at a regularly scheduled board meeting, and then we report our results to the public through the California dashboard. And so the timeline for this local indicator progress, we start in January and we really start collecting and analyzing our data. We measure our progress. You'll recall we did that mid-year report this year. So we took time to really see where we were then, and then we reevaluate this time of year. And then we report before July 1st in conjunction with the LCAP adoption, how we are doing on our local indicators, and then we'll report in the fall. Typically it's in November, October, November, and then the dashboard is published, usually I want to say 1st of December, end of November to the public. So through that process, this is how we are doing. We have basically met all of the local indicator conditions. Once we have reported them to the public in the fall, that will be deemed as met for each of the 7 identified areas. So that is my presentation on local indicators. Do you have specific questions? Yes, Bruce.
So of course, we have a very unique student population here.
Correct.
Being able to, we don't have a cohort coming through the district. We have new kids all the time, coming from all kinds of places. So how can we meaningfully track progress institutionally when every day is a new day in SBCEO classrooms?
So that's where our local like formative assessment data is really critical. So we can look at, so for example, with reading, we use an assessment when the students first enter our program. We assess where they are, and then we'll reassess periodically, I want to say every trimester or every so often, to see what kind of progress are they making, because that's a better indicator for us than a statewide assessment. As you can see, our statewide assessment scores are, they're not above standard. We have some areas to improve, but as you stated, we may have a student who's been with us 1 day or 2 weeks. And so when we give them that assessment, so using those indicators of progress made when they enter, where are they at when they leave, that's a better indication for us to know how are they doing. Is the instruction that we're providing having an impact? We really look at credit recovery as another measure. That's very critical for us. Most of our students come in with significant deficiencies in credits. So how many credits are they able to obtain while in our care or in our custody, I guess, in some respects, and are they able to then move towards graduation? So we use those local assessments as a much better guide to inform how we're doing and what we're doing.
Okay, so I'm very pleased to hear that we don't become enamored by the state's idea of what a regular district should be doing versus really how to measure our own kids and design processes to help them. So that's great. I'm pleased to hear that.
Other questions? Michelle.
Is there a way that something happened to these kids along the way and that's why they're with us now? And
Is there a way that we track how, if the numbers are increasing or where they're coming from? And is that all data that's tracked? And just out of curiosity, and then when they graduate, we haven't seen too many graduations. Does that mean that they've gone back to their districts? And so they graduated with their district, or that what happens at the end when they get to be 18 and they don't have the credits? Where do they go from there? And I think this is really phenomenal work that you do. And I'm sure it's very, very challenging because these kids are broken. And I just honestly appreciate what you're trying to do. And I appreciate that these certifications, like this new capstone that you're developing for Career Tech, giving them some meaningful skills that, and it's not I'd say, or hate to say, not just culinary skills, but skills that they actually can feel like they're productive and they can do something with their hands, whether it's the manufacturing side or something like that. I do appreciate that effort that you're putting into those programs.
Thank you. So to answer your first question in terms of where are they coming from, if we're tracking it, I want to make sure I'm clear in your question. So if it's, are we tracking which districts they would be entering in from? We do track that. We do know which students, where they're originally enrolled, if they're from Santa Barbara or they're from Lompoc or Santa Maria. We do have all of that data and we do track that. I think that was your question. Or
like if there's something we can meet before they get here. If is there a pattern? And I know that's probably the differentiated assistance. There might be a correlation there.
So, I mean, I think that there are patterns. We have repeat students. I mean, we do have students that will come into the program and then exit and then come back. I mean, in terms of tracking, how did they get there? I don't know, do you track all of that? I'm looking at you, besides district information or?
We have a very robust transition process. We have an MOU with probation. So we do have relationships with all of those school districts. And, we contact them as soon as the kid gets here, we look at their transcripts, we update their courses of study. We work very closely with Behavior Wellness, who also is at both the Juvenile Hall Justice Center and the Boys Camp, to make sure they're getting those underlying needs. And sometimes it's medical as well. So we're limited what we can share with the school districts for FERPA and HIPAA and all of those requirements. But educationally, we do track them and we follow up and we make sure that the school districts have what they need so that the student can re-enroll with them and hit the ground running and not miss out on anything. So that kind of.
Is there, at 18, what happens to the kids that don't have the credits?
So in terms of graduation, and you can fill in too, but in terms of graduation numbers, I think it's important to note that we have a really small population. I want to say today at the Juvenile Justice Center, I think there were 23 students. So it really depends on the grade that which the student enters the program. So if I have a lot of freshmen, you're not going to see a lot of senior graduates. If they're a junior and they're with us for a period of time and they obtain enough credits to graduate, that's when those graduates will come through. So it really just depends on their amount of credits they have when they enter the system, and then where they are placed in terms of grade level, and that bases on how many graduates. So it's kind of a mixed number based on the students' original credit accrual. I think in terms of what happens when they're 18, so I know that Renee, they do a wonderful job of working with probation in terms of we can still provide education for a student even after the age of 18 if they haven't graduated. So we will do that if that is the case. But we also work really hard in making sure that they're obtaining enough credits, that they're getting those while they're with us, to try to get them to graduation by the time that they turn 18. And then probation has some post-secondary opportunities that are embedded into the program as well. And so I know that we work with them in terms of technology, and most recently they've been working with Allen Hancock College, I believe, to provide some additional post-secondary opportunities for the youth, especially now that the DJJ, the Department of Juvenile Justice, the realignment. And so we'll see students and youth beyond the age of 18 at the Juvenile Justice Center up to the age of maybe 24. And so making sure that there are opportunities for them to further their education as well. Other questions?
Thank you very much, Bridget. Okay, our next presentation is back with Ellen.
And this one is on behalf of all three of us and Carla, who is unable to join us today. And this is our support for the universal pre-K implementation, which I'll say a word in a minute about the word implementation, which is kind of fun. But this is, as I mentioned, one of those additional plans that the universal pre-K. So I'm going to frame this planning document, which in your board packet is number 10. And I'm going to talk a little bit about just a quick reminder and summary of what we mean about universal pre-K, because it's new. And then what the state's approach to planning and our own approach to planning has been. And then just a quick high-level overview of our SBCEO plan responses. And that word will make more sense in just a few moments. So quick reminder, it was AB 130, that beautiful little law, that established an early learning initiative to expand access to classroom-based instruction, classroom-based programs before kindergarten, offered by school districts, county office of education, and charter schools, so that all 4-year-olds will have access to a free year of pre-K or TK prior to kindergarten. And it's a phase-in program that by 25-26, all 4-year-olds will have that opportunity. And I think I've shared with you before this expansion timeline that just shows that this graphic is how they will phase in the timeline so that the expansion of TK, transitional kindergarten, will add 2 months of eligibility each year until in 25-26. All 4-year-olds will be able to be enrolled in TK if they so choose, if their families so choose. Currently, we already have 4-year-olds enrolled in preschool, including in our California state preschools, and that continues to be an option as well. But this 2 month of eligibility is a slow sort of allowing the districts to expand the number of students they can take into this program over time. And so what this means is that this idea of universal pre-K, and people always say, wait, is it universal TK? Is it universal pre-K? There's a lot of confusion about what we mean by that, especially in some of our districts. And so I think that this graphic here is really nice because the bigger umbrella, or what these all come together, is that universal access for all 4-year-olds. So it might come through universal transitional kindergarten. That's the red ball. It could be through the green, the California State Preschool Program, which we operate through SBCEO, and some of our districts do as well. There are other programs such as Head Start, and there are private, and a family can choose not to put their 4-year-old in anything. And so it's access to universal transitional kindergarten. And all of that will have an impact overall on that whole ecosystem of 4-year-olds. So that's why this planning process has been so important, bless you, because many of our districts are only tangentially aware of all of those other things that happen. They get the kids, but that's not always, it's not always connected. And so this really is new territory and uncertainty because it requires multiple agencies, institutions, ways of thinking to join together to share and plan for this responsibility. And it's going to be ongoing communication because while there is this requirement to provide, there's no requirement to enroll. And families can choose whether they want this or this or this, which really makes projections a little bit difficult for us because we have to take in our schools all the students who want to enroll and who qualify, yet we don't know how many will choose a state preschool, how many will choose private preschool, how many will choose mid-year to switch. You know, they have all of these opportunities. So this really does impact the planning across public schools and the entire ECE community. So as I said, it was new territory and uncertainty. And California is the first to take on such a bold initiative. This doesn't exist in really any other states. It hasn't been done before. So there's no roadmap or blueprint. So they keep talking about it being implementation, but it's not implementation. Implementation is when you have a vision and you have a plan and you execute it. This requires innovation, which is really the design thinking process, which is grounded in, it's user-centric and empathetic collaboration, ideation, experimentation, and with an action bias. And that's how our state is really going about this. Okay, we have a bold plan. We don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out. And so all of this planning is an iterative process. And so unlike accountability plans, this plan is a communication between the districts, the county offices, all the state agencies, so that we can figure out how to do this together. And so what districts and charter schools, they have to complete a plan, and county offices of education have to complete a plan. The plans are not the same, but they're built on the same framework. So all of our LEAs that offer kindergarten, that means 18 of our districts and 9 of our charter schools, must share their initial planning stages sometime this month with their boards. And then what the plan looks like is a survey that CDE will send to us to complete after July 30th. But within that survey, there are required questions and recommended questions. And that's true on both plans, on both the district plan and the county office plans. And so what you have in number 10 is our responses currently to the required questions. We've also spent significant time working on the recommended questions. Oops, I've got a ruckus. We've got a ruckus, Matt. Something's causing a ruckus. Success.
There we go.
Thank you. And so while they have a lot of the same ideas about, and I'll share the framework in just a moment, the plans differ a little bit. So we all got together, and by we all, I mean across the state, and Janelle and Carla Benshoff were really central to the state planning process. Working with the CDE, working with the other county offices to come up with this framework for support, framework for planning, and it outlines all the questions that we have about all the R's. What are the requirements? How will we determine readiness? Where are we going to get enough rooms? What's the revenue? Where are the resources for teachers, for curriculum, for instruction, for everything? So it fits into those 5 categories: vision, partnerships, workforce, which is really huge, everything from credentialing to professional learning. And that one specifically, Carla and Janelle wrote a grant to support all of our districts over the next few years. So we're going to see if we're going to get that extra $1 million for that as well. Curriculum and instruction, and facilities and operations. So they all have a lot of planning that needs to be done. And so how did we go about it? Because the state is providing all of those tools and questions, but it's really happening in each local community and at each county. So on the left, you can see a graphic that shows where it says ECE, that's basically Janelle and her partners. Where it says CNI, it's Carla, who's not here today, and our staff. And the two of them have really beat the streets, gotten out there, met with absolutely everybody. So you can see for Carla, for example, the work with the districts and charters. But Janelle also worked with the districts that have preschools, local planning councils, and all of the private providers, not only getting a feel for the tangible, but also the intangible. There's a lot of relationship building that went on this year. We also had a lot of support from HR and SBAS in completing this plan because it has things about projections and credentials and all of our data where we are in both this plan and in our grant application. They sometimes run together, and also working with special ed as well. And so as we move into next year, instead of just overlapping, part of our goal is really to bring all of these groups and all of these interest holders together to do this together. I don't know what happened up there. So, okay. And so as you take a look at this series of responses to the questions, you'll see that it's structured with those 5 framework categories. But it also starts at the top with an additional several sections around our projections, how we're doing it, our needs assessment, how we'll provide technical assistance, and how we'll build capacity within our agency to do this thing that is now another thing that we're excited though, because what it means is more early education for more children in our community. And so as you take a look, you can kind of go through and you'll see that even though there was not what do I want to call it? A glossary of all of the acronyms, we tried to add at least the very first time something's used, what those are. But you can see what we have included for today is what our answers will be to the required questions. We've also been working closely with the recommended questions. And I just can't say enough about what Janelle and Carla have done over and above their jobs to get this started and to really provide for us a vision and some values and some goals. And we're going to figure all of this out with our districts. So I'll just give you a moment to take a look through and see what questions you might have about this plan and where we're going. Mr. Porter.
So as a school board,
Yes.
we're all about resources, right? We're not going to be down there teaching those cute little kids, but we need to make sure we resource all this. So the questions I would have, and I kind of asked one of them before, is are there enough teachers to do this? And are they available in Santa Barbara County? And the other is, this is a lot of extra seats in classrooms, like you alluded to. Will school districts get ADA for that? And for basic aid schools, what does it mean to them?
Those are all great questions. I'm going to start with your first one, and if I miss one, you'll bring me back on track. And I actually want to take one more step when you talk about resources, because you said, are there enough teachers? There's even a step before that to say, are there enough childcare and preschool spots currently for all of the families that want it? And the answer is no. As we were filling out our grant application, one of the things we were able to prove was that we fall into the category that there are 3 students for each, or 3 children for each spot in childcare in our county. So we'll start right there. However, your question is a good one, because by adding universal TK into the schools, that opens up spots in the other childcare and in the other preschools, because as we get more and more 4-year-olds, it can open in California state preschools to allow us to serve more 3-year-olds. And all of these things also have an economic benefit to families. With that said, as we were taking a look, part of our grant is the grant that we wrote for 1 million on just under 1 million, over 1 million on behalf of our districts is to provide and partner with institutes of higher education, with colleges and universities, as well as to provide the training that will bring all of the workforce on track for getting these certifications. Meanwhile, the California CTC, what's CTC stand for? Teacher Credentialing Commission. It's a commission. Yes, Commission on Teacher Credentialing is working on right now a P3 credential that would allow a lot more flexibility so that we can move teachers who have been teaching 4-year-olds for a really long time into these places. We also are working on getting the teachers who are teaching with multiple subject credentials, elementary teachers, the training they need in order to teach TK, and bringing the expertise of the teachers who've been teaching 4-year-olds for a really long time to the teachers who understand the schools and the systems. So the question is, we'll also have to see how many kids show up, and that 2-month at a time phase-in is really good. Next question you asked was about ADA. So they will get ADA, and that's what we mean by eligible if you're an LCFF district. So that's true for our charters and I have to subtract out the high school districts. So for our LCFF districts, if the students are in that age range, if they admit them before they're eligible, they won't get the ADA until that child turns 5. For basic aid districts, there hasn't been, despite the work that we've been doing with the Small School Districts Association and AXA, not yet. I think they're taking a wait and see, and I don't know who the they are, all the people who decide, kind of a wait and see approach to see who shows up and what the economic impact is. So that is something that is on our priority list to continue, because you're asking a very small school district to, in many cases, they're small school districts, our basic aid districts, to really add another grade potentially without the significant funding in order to do that. So it is a priority, but we haven't gotten that traction yet. Did I get all your
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great.
Good answer.
Any others?
So right now in the preschools and private child care services that are offered to families, some of which they have to pay for, the people who are there are not credentialed teachers.
For the most part, it's a different certification system. Right. And that's what we're working on as a state, and the CTC is working on, because they live in 2 different systems. But Janelle, do you want to add to that?
So so my question is,
okay,
so I'm right, it's different.
Yes.
So is the goal that the pre-TK, I'm going to say teachers, and the private childcare and preschool training all will have the same state requirement?
They're trying to align components, but then you do have differences in a family like childcare, like provider that's in a home, versus like a center that might be funded through state funds or federal funds like Head Start is. So those are more based as educational teachers have to have the BAs, components like that. So they are really trying to do the alignment on that side. We don't know what's going to be happening on more what they call the FCC side, family child care side, and some of the private centers that aren't funded with that same funding stream. So we will see as they're developing, but the alignment right now is really focused more toward the state funded and federally funded educational programs versus what people say is child care. So it gets a little bit.
Because in childcare, obviously, there's going to be kids that aren't 4 years old, aren't 3 years old, they're gonna be 2 years old. And they aren't going to be in universal TK, they'll only be 4-year-old girls. So it's a different mix.
Yes.
Interesting,
It's complex.
very, glad you're doing it.
What does this mean specifically for SBCEO preschools and other programs we have for ECE?
So as I said kind of in my last presentation, there's a lot of unknown components. SBCEO, we have 9 preschools, or we'll next year have 9 preschools and then 2 infant toddler. So our main programs that we provide for like our districts are Lompoc, San Ynez, and Los Alamos. So for us, it's really going to depend on what direction those school districts go and then how we can support. And we are working very closely with those school districts, not just because our job for UTK is to support, but also because we have programs on their campuses as well. So we are doing that, and it's really, we have to see kind of what they decide. But I will say, I think there's another question that's even higher than that is, what is it for state preschool schools overall in our county, not just the ones that we run, because we have some private people like I Love This Youth Project who run state preschool. We have Head Start that does state preschool, and then we have districts who also do state preschool. So I think it's really looking at, as the districts are planning, as Ellen said, we're trying to bring people together because we have 2 different programs or systems that don't know each other's language. We don't know, ECE might not know the TKK side. And so it's really building that collaboration, making sure that they're talking to each other. And when they're deciding and really starting to make those plans, that they understand the impact, not just of this one little part of a school, but what the whole community.
Right.
Because it is about supporting families, and that's the direction that the state is going. We're supporting families not just for the 6 hours, but for the whole 9 hours. There's a lot of other components that the state's really saying, hey, we need to look at families as a whole and what their needs are as a whole. So it's not really answering your question because there's a lot of unknowns there, but it is, we are aware of a lot of the components and we are ready and putting systems in place to support.
So it's a process, not a plan.
That's right. That's why I said at the beginning, it's a plan, but it's a process. And it's about innovation more than it is implementation, because we don't know how to do it yet, but we're figuring it out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, class is over, but now we go on with the rest of it. Now we have to do our work, but this morning was incredibly informative, and it's going to take a bit to process all of that. And meanwhile, you're all working to move forward, and you'll have to come back and bring us up to date. It's fine. So thank you all very much for your presentations. Okay, our action items. Recommend adoption of the County Ed 22-23 LCAP, including the budget overview for parents and supplemental to the annual update to the 21-22 LCAP. And this was presented at our board meeting last week. And we had public hearing at that time. So I am looking for a motion to recommend adoption. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
You need to discuss.
Oh, do we want to discuss it?
You can ask. I don't know.
Are there any questions or discussions? Okay, now we can vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we have the recommended adoption of the 22-23 County School Services Fund budget, which was also presented last week. And we had our public hearing, so I am looking for a motion for adoption.
I move to approve.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Before we adjourn, I do want to mention that at our next meeting, July 7th, at this point, we will have interdistrict transfer hearing, word is, to take care of if everything holds the way it is right now. And this is not a rollover from the one that was today. This is a third one in effect that's coming forward. And our August meeting will be in the late afternoon, probably at 4 o'clock. A public hearing is required, and that public hearing will start at 5. So we'll probably start the board meeting at 4. That's in August. Okay. So until July 7th at 2 p.m.
To adjourn.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We're done.